Conversations with the Hoff. I'm your host, Steve Hoffman, and with me in the studio today are Trip Detmering,
Hey!
the Executive Director of Liberty Crack Media, and Randy Oporowski,
Hello.
a fellow libertarian that I've had the pleasure of working with at both the county and state level libertarian functions. Gentlemen, say hi to our audience.
Hello, audience.
Hi.
Very good. Okay, while the show is called Conversations with the Hoff, you may have noticed that there has been very little conversation in the last 4 episodes. Well, today that changes. We will switch to a true conversational style. Less structure, more riffing, as Randy would say. I'll still have program notes so that we don't meander too far off
Boo.
the goal. What can I say? I'm a type A guy.
Engineering kind. Now, I'm going to warn everybody. These guys are encyclopedias. I can't remember what I had in my coffee this morning. So on the facts and dates and everything, double check me.
Today's episode is going to be kind of a continuation of what we talked about in the past, that we're drifting towards socialism. So today we're going to talk about the beginnings of making that U-turn in hoping of making America free again. So in this episode, we're going to go on a road trip. Hey, everybody loves a road trip, right?
Yay!
And we'll be stopping at key places that were instrumental in America's beginning, that rooted us in the traditions of limited government, individual and economic freedom. And the beginning of our trip, we're going to drive to Philadelphia, PA. Then we're going to move on to Monticello, Virginia, Chicago, Illinois,
Boo.
Silicon Valley, and then back to New York at the Statue of Liberty. So buckle up as we hop into the Hoffmobile and head to the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia.
So, why are we starting here?
Okay, Philadelphia is basically the foundation of our constitutional republic. And you can't talk about the foundation unless you talk about the Declaration of Independence. So what do we know about the Declaration of Independence?
It was written by the greatest founder of all time.
And we will get into the people behind the Declaration of Independence to begin with. But what the importance of the Declaration of Independence was, it was a document that formally announced to everybody that we were breaking from Britain, from Great Britain. Yeah, it was a divorce decree.
Yay.
Been there, done that. But it also established our nation's founding principles of liberty and equality, and laid the groundwork for our modern constitutional republic. We are a unique nation, definitely. Mm-hmm. The rest of the world developed from feudalism, from kings and queens and dukes and princes, and the people didn't establish government. The government was top down. Our government was the very first to be bottoms up.
Ooh, sounds kinky.
Yeah, bottoms up. Well, our colonists were known to imbibe a couple.
Okay, Franklin.
So the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, 1776 by the Continental Congress.
July 2nd.
July 2nd?
Yeah.
They took a few days.
I think later on it got changed to when it was signed or formally ratified on July 4th or something like that.
Okay. We strive to be accurate with the Hoff.
What can I say?
By the way, with the Declaration, Jefferson was trained in classics and ancient Greece and the Enlightenment, and all of the famous quotes from the Declaration These truths are self-evident. All men are created equal, unalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and the right to alter or abolish government was directly from Jefferson. He wrote 85% of the Declaration.
Wow, that's incredible. He could read and write in Latin and Greek and things.
Latin, Greek, French. He was a genius, and John Adams said they commissioned John Adams to write it, and he brought in Jefferson because he said he was 10 times better at writing than he was.
Oh.
And let him just go with it.
Historically, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
Actually, the Continental Congress established what they called a Committee of Five, and that was in June of 1776. So you're right, they started on this document before July 4th. Mm-hmm. And the Committee of Five consisted of Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and two other people. You know who they were?
Robert Livingston and Roger Sherman. I see it on your paper.
Yep. Sherman, Livingston were also.
Livingston, I presume.
Yeah, doctor. Yeah. So the principal writer of the Declaration of Independence was, Randy knows, Thomas Jefferson. He was a student of philosophy, and he'd read the works of John Locke. And John Locke's philosophy played a key role in the verbiage in our Declaration of Independence. And Jefferson's original draft emphasized the natural rights and government by consent, which was the basis of the philosophy of John Locke.
John Locke is basically the founder of classical liberalism.
Yeah.
His second treatise on government was one of the first criticisms of monarchy directly about a century earlier, and the American Revolution was the first culmination of his writings.
Yeah.
And Jefferson was an extreme student of John Locke.
Now, Ben Franklin, we all know about Ben Franklin, right?
Yeah, I love Ben Franklin.
During the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution in those early years when the Founding Fathers were putting together all of the documents that established our nation, Benjamin Franklin played a very unique role. He was 70 years old when he signed the Declaration of Independence. And he was a mediator. He was a guy that they would go to settle disputes. And believe me, there were a lot of arguments, a lot of disputes when our Founding Fathers got together to create this nation. And if it wasn't for Benjamin Franklin, who knows where we would be today. Not that he was a great writer, he was a mediator. He got people together to work together, and he resolved disputes. So that was his effort. That's how he became wealthy.
Yeah.
He was a printer, and he wrote a lot of books, and he wrote the Farmer's Almanac. Mm-hmm. He was the most widely read author in the colonial days, and he became rich and actually retired from business at age 40, based upon his publishing career. You know, and he was just real good at it. What was his original business?
I forget. He was also he originally had slaves, and he became one of the few radical abolitionists of the founders.
No, that's true.
I'll be darned.
Well, you know what? One thing I do want to take a pause to point out here is that the original founders were all characters. They were all kind of bon vivants. They had a lot of personality and things like that. All the things that the Democrats and Republicans point out as the libertarians being crazies.
What's your point?
Well, I'm just saying.
Radicals and crazies?
Yeah. We're just doing it by tradition.
One of my heroes once said that radicalism was no vice, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I know, a bad quote. But our signers of the Declaration of Independence were a little bit odd. I agree. You know that over half of them were not lawyers.
Yay.
They included merchants, farmers, doctors, educators, and even a surveyor.
Wow.
One founder, Button Gwinnett, is famous mainly because his signature is extremely valuable today. Extremely valuable because he died shortly after signing the Declaration of Independence. Who was the youngest and who was the oldest signer of the Declaration of Independence? A little trivia here.
Franklin the oldest?
Indubitably, yes, he was.
Was Jefferson one of the youngest?
The youngest was Edward Rutledge from South Carolina. He was only 26 years old.
Wow.
He was just a rut.
Yeah.
He from South
A little
Carolina. Why was it so risky to be someone to sign the Declaration of Independence?
Well, most likely the thing was considered treasonous.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. 5 points for the trip.
Yay!
Yeah, if the British considered that an act of treason, and the punishment for treason was hanging. So that's why one of the famous quotes from Benjamin Franklin is, "We must all hang together, or most assuredly we will hang separately."
Yeah.
Okay, what was the more about the significance of the Declaration of Independence again?
Well, I mean, the biggest significance is that we declared to the world that we were separating from the first imperial power.
Right. And it basically set up to let everybody know that we were going to become a free nation. And it began our courting of other countries to help us in what we knew was going to come. So we got the Declaration of Independence, and then the next step was to set up a framework for these 13 original colonies. And what was that framework?
Well, I think it was probably more of a loose confederation of 13 individual governments than it was one giant nation.
This led to a massive debate. There were 13 original colonies. As Patrick Henry said, as an anti-federalist, the 13 original colonies defeated the largest empire on earth. And apparently that's not a big enough government for the Federalists. John Adams and Hamilton were on the other side of the spectrum, and Jefferson probably would have been on Patrick Henry's side if he would have been in the U.S.
I think Franklin kind of leaned on the side of the Federalists simply because he thought it was a requirement in order to negotiate with foreign governments like France.
So we signed our Declaration of Independence. We went to war. We won the war, and everything was hunky-dory after that, right?
No,
it was chaos. It was terrible. They signed they formed what they call a Confederation of States, the Articles of Confederation, and thought that would be the document that would make this nation go further. It was a disaster, a complete disaster. Primarily, there was only one branch of government, and that was the legislative, the Congress. But guess what they couldn't do?
pass laws.
Well, they were very weak in that.
Yeah.
They could pass them, but they couldn't enforce them because they couldn't raise any taxes. There was no money to enforce the laws.
Tariffs.
Yeah. And they had, each state, remember, was a sovereign state,
Yeah.
very independent state, and a lot of them had their own currencies. They had commerce issues. They were setting tariffs between each states. Like I say, it was a complete disaster. And there was, because we had no money, we couldn't establish a standing army.
Sounds like our business.
Yeah. But the original Confederation was so weak that, believe it or not, the British still had troops stationed in the 13 original colonies.
Yeah.
We couldn't do anything about it because we really didn't have an effective army. It was a disaster. That led to the drafting of the U.S. Constitution in 1787. And we're going to talk about that right now.
Yay!
Hey.
So, what do you think the importance of the Constitution was? And I think I just talked about that a little bit.
Well, it addressed all the disasters you were talking about.
Well,
yeah,
and there's
it corrected the deficiencies of the Articles of Confederation.
Talking about Jefferson and Hamilton, one of the reasons the Anti-Federalists were scared about creating a larger government was certain founding fathers were a little more on the other end of the spectrum. Hamilton wanted a permanent, lifelong king. A lot of them wanted to incorporate the British almost proxy monarchy system. And on the other extreme were Jefferson and Patrick Henry. So that deadlocked them for most of that decade.
We'll get to that, and you're talking about things that necessitated that we have more than one constitutional convention, because they wrote a constitution, but there were some things that other people wanted them to address. The anti-federalists wanted them to address. But basically the Constitution formed the basis for the foundation for our republic. It was the supreme law of the land. And of course, as I don't want to be a history teacher here, but we now have 3 branches of government, not just one. So it formed the 3 branches of government, which divided power. It also set up a system of checks and balances, which was very important. And the Declaration of Independence was supposed to be a protection of our individual rights. But as Randy was saying, the first draft and the first approved Constitution really didn't do that to the satisfaction of some of the states.
Well, that's true, but we're still wrestling with this constitutional battle even today, based on the fact that we've got people that want to disrupt the checks and balances. They want to put in additional people or judges on the Supreme Court. They want to, do all these things to kind of circumvent all of those things that the brilliant designers of this Constitution put into place.
And they've attempted that. We talked about the Great Society and the New Deal in the last episode. He packed the court, FDR.
Yeah.
And it was thrown out.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the Bill of Rights.
No.
Now, that was great that they let the government let us have certain rights. Wasn't that remarkable that they let us actually have freedom of speech?
They didn't let us have anything. Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. They graced us with.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Government. I appreciate that. That's a main difference between the United States and the rest of the world.
True.
No, the government didn't grant us rights. We wrote in our Constitution that the government is to keep your hands off of our natural rights.
Yeah.
Do not infringe on our rights. We, the people, told Congress what they could or could not do.
Yeah.
As opposed to all other governments around the world where the government said, hey, serfs, we're going to let you do this or we're going to let you do that. So that was a major difference. Now, who are the key contributors to the Constitution? Who is known as the father of the Constitution?
Madison.
Right. Yeah, James Madison. He came up, he wrote what they call the Virginia Plan. And our Constitution is really pretty much tailored after his Virginia Plan. Other contributors were George Washington and again Benjamin Franklin. How old was Benjamin Franklin when they signed the first Constitution?
Ooh, pushing 80.
Yeah, he had to be because he was in the 70s when they did the signing of the independence.
He must have been taking as many supplements as I do because he was 81 years old.
Wow.
Ah, yep.
An old fart, an old bon vivant. And of course, I'm sure Randy has a few choice words to say about Alexander Hamilton.
Boo.
What do we know about Alexander Hamilton? As libertarians, we believe in limited government, individual, and economic freedom. Alexander Hamilton wanted a very strong, powerful central government. Now, luckily, he lost most of his arguments at the Constitutional Congress. Other states were afraid that a strong government would step on them, and eventually there wouldn't be any independent sovereign states. Everything we'd have to follow up whatever the big brother government said. So they made sure that they vetoed many of Alexander Hamilton's suggestions.
But they didn't get a Broadway show.
Well, no, but Hamilton did, yeah.
Yeah, there's probably a reason Hamilton's the one they picked for the Broadway show.
Exactly.
But let's not be too harsh on Hamilton,
Why not?
because after the Constitution was signed and they had to go sell it, to get it ratified, he was one of the strongest supporters of the Constitution.
Okay, I'm gonna give him some grace then.
Oh yeah, give him some slack, man.
Any increase in government, Hamilton supported.
And there goes the grace.
I'm not feeling very graceful. about
That's right.
Hamilton. By the way, the president of the Mises Institute, the now president Thomas DiLorenzo, wrote a whole book on Hamilton that details all of these. These fights went all the way until Aaron Burr shot him.
Oh, our listeners, if you're not familiar with it, go to Mises, MISES.org, and look up all these writings. They're fantastic.
Now, Alexander Hamilton did win out on one specific function of government that is basically one of the root of our problems today, and that was a central bank.
Ah.
He wanted a strong central bank. Now, we off and on in our history, we had a central bank. And then Andrew Jackson put a stake in it and just said, no, we're not going to have no central bank.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then along comes Woodrow Wilson, and sure enough, we have a pseudo-central bank.
It's called a Woody.
Yeah, there you go. That has no responsibility to the federal government. It's not even a part of the federal government. It's the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
So Hamilton got his way. We now have the Federal Reserve.
Jefferson went kicking and screaming on the central bank, but one interesting point about that, if you go to New York City, right to the right of Wall Street is where Washington was inaugurated, like 100 feet away.
Wow.
And Jefferson did everything he could to prevent it, but he ended up compromising, and they moved the capital down to D.C. in exchange. That was Jefferson's goal, and in exchange, he allowed Hamilton to have his central bank in the debates over it.
Okay, there are some pretty fun facts that just we'll quickly go through them on the Constitution, and then we'll kind of cut it off while we move on to our next location. James Madison. James Madison, the father of our Constitution, was only 5'4" tall, and he only weighed 100 pounds.
A little Napoleon.
Napoleon.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Now, another guy, Gouverneur Morris, this is the guy that wrote the preamble to the Constitution. Guess what? He had a wooden leg.
Wow.
So,
These guys are definitely libertarians.
quite an odd group of people.
Sounds like our county meeting.
That's right.
And of course, I already told you that Benjamin Franklin was 81 years old. Now, he wasn't in the best of health, but he wrote a lot of speeches that had to be given to the Continental Congress, and he was too frail himself, so he had other people read the speeches. Little fun fact there. Okay, so
Kind of like why I have younger people doing podcasts.
So on this road trip, we visited Philadelphia, which is the home of the most consequential documents that made America great, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And we're now going to move on to our next stop. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Yeah, we had to get the Hoffmobile gassed up, and we had to put a couple of quarts of oil in there. But we made it to our next destination.
He had to replace his wooden leg.
Yeah, we're now at Monticello, Virginia, and this is the home of Thomas Jefferson's agrarian vision. What do we know about Monticello? Why is it unique?
That's a good question. What do we know about Monticello?
Thomas Jefferson was a polyglot. Yeah.
Yep.
And he knew a little bit about everything. I mean, he was a Renaissance man.
Mm-hmm.
And he incorporated all of his ideas into his estate at Monticello.
He even designed the architecture, correct?
He designed the building. He designed the gardens. He experimented with all kind of crops and everything. It was. You got to remember that Jefferson had an agrarian vision. He believed that agriculture was virtue. Farmers foster independence and moral strength. He believed that self-sufficient farmers were less likely to be corrupted by wealth, debt, and all the other sins that they have in the big city.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he was an agrarian type of philosopher.
Well, we've got a very strong agrarian movement within the libertarians.
Okay. He also believed that equality was brought through land ownership.
Yay.
Remember the British systems where you couldn't own land. The land was owned by the royalty,
The feudal system, yeah.
by the powerful elite. Yeah, the feudal system. So in America, he wanted land owned by the citizens. Now you have a stake in the pie, right? You now have ownership and you have responsibility.
That's also why he wanted to move the capital, because he thought it being in a big city like New York City would corrupt everyone working in government in the capital.
And he was right. And it slowed it down when they made D.C., but it eventually grew into the same corruption he was trying to avoid.
And Thomas Jefferson also wanted to make sure that there was enough land in this news station where people could become farmers, where the people could become landowners. And that was the reason behind the Louisiana Purchase. That's
okay.
why he was so adamant about purchasing that land from France.
That, and he wanted to get Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And Hollywood.
There were a lot of fights over that, too, because I think they allocated $10 million or something, and it ended up being a little bit more than
Yeah, that we overpaid for it, which is about just any other kind of real estate deal that anybody gets into. Yeah.
So you're right. Early on, Monticello was designed by Thomas Jefferson. It incorporated his visions for America. He did the the architecture. It was a laboratory for innovation. And in all of this, there's a little bit of a controversy and a paradox. I mean, this is all about freedom, right?
Uh-huh.
But yet, as we all know, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. So this is one of those instances where our ideals and our professed beliefs get driven right into the wall of reality. And sometimes that happens.
Yeah, but I still have to go with that idea of, did he really in his mind, own the slaves, or were they? He was under the guise of slavery having black employees.
Jefferson, in the context of the times, the American Revolution was the most successful revolution against a monarchist empire, and they created a very stable republic, which their contemporaries, the French, did not.
Yeah.
And was one of the first successful downfalls of the monarchist system. But in the context of that time, there maybe 10% of the founders were abolitionists or hardcore anti-slavery.
Yeah.
And Jefferson had a very influential, rich agricultural family in Virginia.
Yeah.
Inherited a lot of slaves, but he never defended slavery. He always opposed it. That was one of the fights that Adams and Franklin had to negotiate, because he included in the Declaration of Independence that King George III had waged a cruel war against human nature itself, violating the sacred rights of life and liberty and persons of distant people who never offended him, into slavery, and called it piratical warfare and execrable commerce.
Yeah.
He, from the 1760s, 1770s, always opposed slavery, always criticized it, but in practice, he had inherited a lot of slaves. It's limited information on what he did or didn't do and how he treated them. But a sliver of the founders explicitly opposed slavery and were abolitionists, and you have to understand the context of the time.
Oh, yeah.
He was a major classical liberal philosopher, and that is definitely a contradiction. Maybe a century from now, people look at we eat animals.
There's this Neville Morald or something. I'd have to look it up. But anyway, this man supposedly was an abolitionist, yet he still had Irish indentured servants, and he was cruel to them. Yeah. He actually used chains. He was whipping them and everything else. I was just like, wait a minute. So I mean, talk about contrast to the times.
Well, in Jefferson, the man, he supported revolution, and he was slow to criticize the terror Violence that happened during the French Revolution. He thought it was very similar to the American Revolution. So there's contradictions.
Oh, yeah.
But Monticello was definitely unique for its time. It took 40 years to construct Monticello.
Wow.
From 1768 to 1809.
A precursor to government building.
And it had over 43 rooms and an octagonal dome. Wow. It was the very first building in the United States to actually have a dome.
Ah.
And the picture of Monticello was on the back of our nickel, all the way until 1938. And it is the only United States residence that is a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yeah. Wow. And like I was telling you guys in our pre-production meeting, I think they just uncovered the secret room that was the quarters of his mistress. Yeah.
Yeah. Old
It
Sally.
had numerous secret passageways.
Mm-hmm.
But Thomas Jefferson also established a library at Monticello, and he had over 6,000 books there, which is probably a good thing, because in the War of 1812, guess what the British did?
They burned down
the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
And who replenished the books there? Thomas Jefferson did, from his own personal library.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, remember, he was an agrarian supporter.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to make sure that the farmers in the United States could make a living. They could have a wide variety of crops. They could have reliable, efficient farms. He experimented in crop rotation. He had 5,000 acres, and he planted over 250 vegetables and 170 different fruits. But he experimented, and he kept a log of all of his experiments. Now, let me also tell you that most of his experiments failed.
As they should.
Right. He knew the scientific method.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be afraid of failure.
No.
And Thomas Jefferson wasn't afraid of failure. He learned from his failures. And today, who do we have that talks about why we have to accept failure? Elon Musk.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Randy. Okay.
Or my first two marriages.
No, he was not married to Randy. Just to clarify that.
No, Elon Musk says we should embrace failure.
Yeah.
Because failure, if we learn from failure, it will lead us to success.
And I also want to get back a little bit about the crops. A lot of his crops were New World crops, meaning they were things that were strictly from here in this continent. And one of those beautiful, beautiful, wonderful crops was tobacco. And so if you enjoy tobacco and the tobacco leaf, listen to Liberty on Nicotine.
Right. That was one of his main objectives, was to bring a lot of different crops from other countries and see how they would grow in the United States. Therefore, expanding the range of products that could be sold by farmers to make farmers more profitable.
That shows Jefferson's Enlightenment thinking, too, because when he studied the classics, he didn't just study John Locke in philosophy. He studied Francis Bacon, who was basically the founder of the scientific method, and Isaac Newton, who he called the three greatest humans to ever live.
Yeah.
And you can see that throughout his whole life, his involvement in the Declaration and how he ran Monticello.
So he was not only had an agrarian vision, but he put that vision to practice, and Monticello is the epitome of his agrarian vision.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, it seems like we're going to wrap up our episode for today, but we're going to do a continuation, sort of,
Right.
Of sorts. And so I want everybody to tune in, and it's going to be, it's going to be in the before the dawn of the new year and after our Christmas gifts are opened and so on. So,
Yeah, I got to put some gas in the car and a couple quarts of oil, and then we'll be making our way on to Chicago.
fantastic. Well, he's going to load up his sleigh, as they say, and we hope to hear from everybody. Leave comments if you can. If you like this episode, tell your friends. And from all of us here at Liberty Craft Media, this has been Conversations with the Hoff.
Late night coffee, truth on our tongues, talking freedom while the radio hums. Less red tape and more open doors. The founder's vision we're fighting for. Hands off my dreams, hands off my pay. Let the people chart their own way. voices